Crossman, the superintendent, telephoned Mr. Tanner this morning to ask about mice at Sneed, she told her class. Mr. Tanner said he didn't think there was much to worry about, that the reporter got carried away. Mr. Crossman said that was good because since people voted for Proposition 13 and taxes had been cut, the school district couldn't afford an exterminator. Mr. Tanner told him not to worry, that he would have Mr. Costa set mousetraps overnight to see what happened. Mr. Crossman said there was enough money in the budget for 5 mousetraps. Traps, thought Ralph. What a joke. Was that the investigation? Someone asked. One phone call? Miss Kay laughed. That was the investigation. Even though the class was concerned for Ralph's safety, everyone felt let down. They'd expected some excitement, a team of men in white uniforms perhaps, and the school closed for several days. If Mr. Costa doesn't catch any mice, do we get to write our letters to the Cucaracha Voice? Asked Gloria. That's right, agreed Miss Kay. But what if Mr. Costa catches Ralph? Someone asked. Others voiced the same worry. Ralph was insulted. Hadn't he proved his intelligence by finding a new way to run a maze? He knew all about traps. As soon as he was old enough to leave the nest, his mother had taken him to see a baited trap in the hotel kitchen and had explained its evils, one by one. We'll just have to take that chance, said Miss Kay. Now please settle down and finish those spelling sentences. Spelling sentences were all Room 5 did manage that morning. At lunchtime, some of the girls began to call, Ralphie, where are you, Ralphie? As they gathered up their lunchboxes. Ralphie? Ralph would never answer to such a silly name. He noticed Brad was the last to leave, as if he were not eager to join the others for lunch. Suddenly, Ralph's anger boiled over. He did not care if Brad looked lonely. He did not care if Brad found out he could talk. He was going to take matters into his own paws and tell that boy a thing or two. Ralph leaped lightly from the top of the book, dashed across the floor, and sprang up on Brad's jeans. Desperately, he clung by his toenails as Brad walked out of the room and slowly down the hall. Miss Kay locked the door of her room and caught up with Brad, put her arm around his shoulders, and said, Is there something I can do to help you? I'm okay, was all Brad said. If I can do anything, please let me know. Miss Kay released Brad and went on down the hall. Neither had noticed the mouse clinging to Brad's jeans. Ralph ran up Brad's leg onto the front of his t-shirt. Finally, Brad must have felt Ralph's toenails, for he looked down. You thug, said Ralph. You broke my motorcycle, my only way of getting out of this place. I'm too little to wade through slush, and anyway, walking isn't as much fun as riding my motorcycle, especially through puddles. Brad stared at Ralph. You can talk, he said as if he didn't believe it. Of course I can talk, said Ralph. Not many people can understand me, but I can talk. How come I understand you? Asked Brad. You're the type. You're lonesome, and you're interested in cars and motorcycles. That's the sort of person who understands me. Brad seemed to be thinking this answer over as Ralph continued. How come you're lonesome? You're not a new boy in school like Ryan. None of your business, said Brad. Then, realizing he had admitted more than he intended, he contradicted himself. I'm not lonesome. Ah, come on, coaxed Ralph, who by now was genuinely curious. You can tell me. Brad was stubbornly silent. I'm just a little mouse, you know, Ralph reminded him. Well, I live with my father and Arfie, my dog. My folks got divorced, and my mom doesn't live with us anymore. It's lonesome without her, confessed Brad. Oh, too bad, Ralph was sympathetic. His own mother nagged him, but he missed her right now. Ryan's lonesome too, because he's new here, Ralph told Brad. You two should get together. Suddenly, Brad laughed, the first time Ralph had ever heard him laugh. I don't believe this, he said. A mouse telling me what to do. Ralph's feelings were hurt. Don't believe it then, he said, remembering his motorcycle. Don't be mad. Brad was sorry he had hurt Ralph's feelings. Let's be friends. Why should we? Asked Ralph in his coldest squeak. You wanted to make the maze too hard. You pushed my friend and you broke my motorcycle. Why should we be friends? Because, began Brad, and then, look, I didn't know Ryan had a motorcycle in his pocket, or you either. I thought he was a rich. Oh, never mind what I thought. Was that really your motorcycle? Yes, it was, Ralph spoke in his crossest voice. A boy gave it to me. Wow, breathed Brad, a mouse with a motorcycle. Can you ride it? Not when it's broken, said Ralph. Now put me down and go eat your lunch. I need a little rest. Mice are supposed to be nocturnal, you know, and I need my sleep in daytime. Miss Kay locked the door, Brad reminded him, and you shouldn't be running around the halls where you can get stepped on. No problem, I can go under the door, said Ralph. Will you talk to me again? Asked Brad, as he used the hand not in the sling to set Ralph on the floor. Maybe, maybe not. Answered Ralph. With that non-committal reply, he flattened himself and slipped under the door into the empty classroom. Inside, he entered what had become his home away from home, Melissa's boot. He felt that he had only dozed off when Ryan's hand closed around him. Gotcha, said Ryan. Put me down, snarled Ralph, needing his rest. Brad was right, said Ryan. I didn't think you would come back, but he said he found you and you talked to him. The class began to return and to crowd around Ryan. You found him, they said. Miss Kay, Ralph's safe. Where will we keep him? We can't let him get caught in a trap. Trap, snapped Ralph. Do you think I'm stupid? Only Ryan and Brad understood him. Let's put him in the fishbowl for the time being, said Miss Kay. Oh no, groaned Ralph, not again. I think Ralph likes more privacy, said Ryan. There's that old mitten that's been lying around, said Melissa. He could have it to sleep in. In spite of Ralph's struggles, he found himself once again in the fishbowl, this time with the old mitten. Furious with Ryan for not managing to save him from this indignity, he crawled into the thumb where he thought mean thoughts about everyone in room 5. Just before the last bell rang, Ryan set a bottle cap full of water in the fishbowl along with the corner of a granola bar Miss Kay had given him. Now take it easy, he whispered. You stay where you're safe tonight, and tomorrow we'll get you out of here. I promise. Ralph refused to come out of the mitten thumb to answer. Later, when Mr. Costa came in to sweep, he listened to the radio sing a mournful song about a lonely truck driver in jail who longed for his 18-wheel rig and the open highway. And all I want is 2 wheels, thought sad and lonely Ralph. The next morning, Mr. Tanner reported to Miss Kay, and Miss Kay reported to her class that no mice had been caught in Mr. Costa's traps. Yay! Cheered room 5. I told you so, said Ralph from the mitten thumb, but no one heard him. Miss Kay wrote the proper form of a business letter instead of a friendly letter on the blackboard because the class was not planning to write friendly letters to the Cucaracha Voice. The class set to work writing to the editor explaining that the story he published about the mouse exhibit was not true. If someone had trouble spelling a word, that person asked Miss Kay about it. She then wrote the word on the blackboard in case someone else wanted to use it. Outrageous and ridiculous were the first words she wrote. She told Brad, yes, blockhead is one word, but can't you find a better way of expressing yourself? Miss Kay promised personally to deliver the letters to the paper during lunch period. No matter how many people spoke to him that day, Ralph refused to come out of the mitten thumb, which fortunately already had an excellent peephole. He noticed Brad, who still had his arm in a sling, hand a note to Miss Kay, who handed it back to him with a nod and a big smile. He saw Ryan pass a note to Brad, and Brad pass a note back. Quite a busy bunch, thought Ralph. He was bored and much too warm, but he refused to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing him in his glass prison. When the long, miserable day ended, Ralph found himself being pulled out of the mitten by Ryan. Come on, fellow, you're going back to the inn, he said. And face all my relatives without my motorcycle? Squeaked Ralph. No, thank you. Relax, you can't live at school forever, said Ryan through his teeth as he tried not to move his lips. Trust me, everything is going to be all right. You'll see. Because Ryan kept his hand closed around him, Ralph had no choice. He had to trust Ryan unless he bit him instead. He decided against doing so because Miss Kay said hurting people did not solve anything. Ryan shoved Ralph into his parka pocket and closed the zipper all the way. Even so, Ralph was aware that something unusual was happening. Brad got on the school bus with Ryan after saying to the driver, Here's my note from home. The 2 boys sat together. Have you got it? Asked Ryan. Yep, answered Brad, right here in my pocket. Got what? Wondered Ralph. The remains of my motorcycle? I've always wanted to ride on a school bus, said Brad. And I've always wanted to ride on a tow truck, said Ryan. That's easy, said Brad. My dad will give you a ride. He gets lots of calls up your way when the roads are icy, and he pulls a lot of cars out of snowbanks. Business is good this time of year. I'll ask the cook if you can stay to dinner, said Ryan. Wow, dinner in a hotel? Brad was impressed. We'll have to eat in the kitchen, Ryan explained, and since the hotel's got a microwave oven, sometimes the plates are hot and the food isn't. That's okay, said Brad. My dad cooks mostly hamburgers and opens cans of beans. Then, lest Ryan think him disloyal to his father, he added, my dad makes good hamburgers, and on Sunday he cooks a steak. Sometimes, if he's really busy, I get my own supper. Then I have hot dogs. You mean you stay alone? Asked Ryan. I have Archie with me, said Brad. I wish I could get to stay alone with a dog, said Ryan. I get tired of hearing the waitresses tell the cook that the guests are complaining because the food isn't hot enough. Ralph resented being imprisoned by a zipper, and the conversation was boring because it was not about him. He thought about biting his way out, but he did not like the taste of nylon. Besides, the school bus was not a good place to hide. When the two boys got off the bus, Ralph heard their feet crunch through the snow. The inn was at a higher altitude than the town of Cucaracha, and the snow lasted longer. Then he heard their feet stamp up the steps, scratch on the doormat, and enter the lobby. The old clock was still managing its familiar slow tick-tock. To Ralph, it sounded like an old friend. Hello there, boys, said Ralph's protector, Matt. Ryan, I'm glad to see you have a friend. So Matt had not lost his job after all. Then, as Ralph had hoped, the little mice must have moved upstairs where they would be unable to taunt him after losing his motorcycle. Feeling more cheerful, Ralph began to jump around in the slippery pocket. Let me out, he demanded. Ryan unzipped his pocket and lifted Ralph out, but held on to him. How good the lobby looked. A fire still burned in the old stone fireplace, and the grandfather clock and television set were right where they had always been. One thing was different. The lobby was neater than Ralph remembered it. Ashtrays were clean, and old magazines arranged neatly on tables. The desk clerk ignored the boys, who did not stop to remove their jackets before they knelt in front of the clock. Do you think it will fit? Ryan asked Brad. We'll see in a second. Brad pulled out something out of his pocket. Wow, a Laser XL7, just like you said, breathed Ryan, as Brad set a miniature sports car on the floor and pushed it carefully through the highest part of the arch at the bottom of the clock. The car was low enough, if maneuvered by a skillful driver, to slip through. See that, Ralph? Ralph had seen all right. The sleek, mouse-sized car with wire-spoked wheels and knockoff hubcaps was painted silvery gray, the right color for whizzing unnoticed through shadows. The broad, thick tires would stand up to the rough surface of carpets and make a wide splash through puddles. The doors did not open, but the windows were big enough for a nimble mouse to climb through, and, after all, racing car drivers did not open their doors. Ralph was squeakless at the sight of such a beautiful sports car. Why, with a car like that, he would no longer have to hang onto his tail to keep it from tangling in the spokes. He could just hop in and take off. Come on, let's see you drive it, Ryan set Ralph down beside the little Laser XL7. Could he drive it? He'd show them. Ralph slipped through the window into a bucket seat, made sure his tail was safely inside, grasped the wheel, took a deep breath, and went. The car did not move. Some noisy skiers came in from outdoors, but paid no attention to the kneeling boys as they crossed the lobby. The boys crouched behind the couch until they had gone. Silly, said Ryan. That's your old motorcycle noise. You've got to make a sports car noise to make a sports car move. Stupid of me, admitted Ralph, who had been too excited to think straight. He took another deep breath, made his voice as low as a squeaky voice could go, and went, vroom, vroom. The Laser began to roll across the floor. Ralph was driving. He was actually driving this beautiful sports car. He drove it straight into the leg of a couch where it stopped. Ralph vroomed again. The car did not budge. Ralph, who had joined the boys to watch, asked, How's the little fellow going to back up? Silence. No one had thought of this problem. Ryan's mother stepped out of the elevator. Hello, Ryan, she said with a smile. Is this your new friend? Yes, this is Brad, answered Ryan, with his hand on the Laser XL7 so his mother would not see Ralph. Hi. Brad was unexpectedly shy. I'm glad you could come home with Ryan, said Mrs. Bramble. What are you boys doing? Playing with the little car, said Ryan. Play quietly, said Mrs. Bramble, and if the manager appears, you'd better go out to our cottage, or perhaps you could show Brad around. He might like to see the kitchen. With that advice, she went off to make sure the maids had cleaned the ground floor bedrooms properly. Brad sat back on his heels. Your mom sure is nice, he said. Yes, agreed Ryan, his thoughts on Ralph's problems. Vroom, vroom, vroom! Ralph made a noise like a racing motor. The car did not move. What we need is your dad's tow truck, remarked Ryan. Ralph found the boys' laughter most annoying. I know, said Brad. If going vroom makes the car go forward, maybe saying vroom backwards would make it back up. Merv! Merv! Ryan tried out the sound. It's hard to say, but if it works, that's okay. Backing a car is slower than going forward. Try it, Ralph. Merv! The car inched away from the leg of the couch. Merv! The car was free. Vroom! Ralph drove off in a wide circle and returned to his friends. Do I get to keep it? He asked. We'll stop right there. Thanks for letting me read to you.